And welcome back to Habs Unfiltered, episode 433. I'm your host, Blain, and I'm joined by my co host, Matt Smith.
Good evening.
Unfortunately, Treg couldn't stay up this late to record the show. As we record, it's about 9:30 Atlantic time. It's pretty late for him at his age. I mean, he had supper at like 3 p.m.
Early bird special.
All right, so before we jump into it, I just want to make note of our partners. Uh, BioSteel, use code HABS Unfiltered for 20% off any purchases of BioSteel. And No Name Hockey, use code HABS10 and save 10% on any order of custom made equipment or sticks. Uh, Keep in mind that both those companies are Canadian owned and operated. Elbows up. All right, so we're going to get right into it now. The Canadiens coming off an overtime loss to the Islanders. I want to go into this game a little bit because I feel like it's a bit of a microcosm of the season. Going into the game, it seemed like that was a game the Canadiens should have won, or they were expected to win, and it was a bit of a trap game.
Yeah, it seemed that way, but at the same time, you look at some of the teams they beat lately, or some of the teams that on the calendar you can say that's going to be a loss or that should be a loss, and they've come out on top, right? So the team's still the best team since the Four Nations. Nick Suzuki's tied for, I believe, with Rope Hintz and Connor McDavid for the most points since the tournament. So he's obviously been flying. Um, this was just one that got away from them. But the fact that they battled back and still earned that much needed point in the standings, when other guys below them in the standings aren't really looking too hot lately. Like as we record,
No,
Columbus is down to the Pittsburgh Penguins. I believe that would be 4, 5, 6 games in a row that they've lost. So they're slowly going down the standings. Um, and they're 2 points up on the Islanders right now. They're 2 points up on the Rangers with 2 games in hand, and they're only 3 points behind the Ottawa Senators, who have now lost their last 2 games, one to the Canadiens and the other to the Colorado Avalanche, who Montreal will be playing on Saturday night.
yeah, Colorado destroyed them. It was it was not even fair. It was like watching a Pee Wee team get destroyed. Like it
Right.
was it. They were not in the same league as Colorado. And that's just an off night for Ottawa. This is not to say, this is not to crap on
Oh,
Ottawa
they've
here,
been
but
playing, honestly, they've been playing good hockey as of late.
yeah, yeah. So right now, um, yeah, so the Canadians are firmly into a wild card position right now. 3 points back from Ottawa, 2 points ahead of the Islanders, who they gave up 2 points to, but they stole 1 point. So
Yep.
that kept a little bit of a cushion there. And the Rangers, who are also 2 points behind them, and the Rangers have been sucking ass recently. Which who
Again,
knows what
they're
the hell's going on
they're
there?
one of those teams. They're 3, 5, and 2 in their last 10, and it's just they're on paper they should be such a better team.
Yeah, yeah,
But
that's just it. So this
but
was an opportunity for the Canadians. They could have taken a 5 point lead over, create a 5 point cushion over the Islanders, but the 3 point swing, 2 point swing, whatever you want to call it,
right.
that's what happened. So it could have been a completely different outcome. The Canadians could have won this in regulation had it not been for a video review call in the first period on that Suzuki breakaway goal.
Right. It was
So
close. It was close.
it super close. They called it a goal.
Yeah.
And then after 20 minutes of staring at really bad angles with really grainy pictures, they called it back.
Yeah. I have definitely seen worse calls called a goal.
Oh God, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So again, like, would that have made the big difference of the game? Who
Could
knows?
have.
Could it have swing momentum? Who we're not gonna know. That's the problem, right? And the only thing that we can deal with is reality, and reality is the Canadians left New York with a single point. And
Yeah.
now it's restructure, regroup, and get ready to play a very tough team in the Avalanche. But I like what I saw.
Yes.
But I like what I saw from the team. They were down 3-1 in the down 3-1. in the third period. They came back and they made a game of it. Line scores on the power play, which is just his bread and butter,
Yep.
which is insane. I think he's got 14 of them now or something like that, and I think
That was
17
a
over.
video review that went in their direction that
Yeah,
time because
right.
they challenged because they thought Slavkovsky had interfered with Sorokin, but I mean, it's hard to interfere with a goalie when you're 4 feet outside your crease.
That's true. That's very true. And then, Gallagher, and we're going to get into him in a little bit, but him scoring another goal
Yeah.
to tie it there and a little over 5 minutes to go. The team is showing a lot of heart. They're playing for each other.
Yes.
And another guy I'll give a shout out to is Joshua Waugh for scoring his first goal of the season. Battled hard along the boards, got to the front of the net, was able to get the Struble point shot on net and scores first. He's a smart player. We know he is. We know he's got potential. He showed up at camp. He might not have been ready, and guys like Heineman jumped him in the order. So now it's up to him to go into next season and be that guy and to take somebody else's job.
He played a lot less tentative in this game. So he was actually going in the corners, going to the net. He was battling. He looked a lot more comfortable. But to go back to the video reviews, so the two video reviews in this game, one went for, one went against the Canadiens. Um, and I'm not saying that the calls that were made were right or wrong. It's just my issue with those offside reviews or any review really. The point is to reverse the call, to see if you should reverse the call. If it takes you more than a minute, minute and a half,
Right.
and more than a couple of angles, then what are you doing? Like
Yeah.
it's so
You're
close,
killing the
you
life
just
of the
stick with
game.
your call.
Yeah, you're killing the life,
Exactly.
right? So,
Exactly. It's going to hurt. Like this is one of those things where it'll go if they went that way, it would go against the Canadians a few times. It would go for them a few times. It evens out,
yeah.
but it would speed up the game a bit.
And I know that there's talk of challenges getting a time limit. Like I know people have talked about that, but would we see an improvement or would we just see a rushed response?
Possibly, or
Right?
I don't
So,
know. How many angles do they actually have? Give these referees when they're doing the review the best possible angles, not just the TV feed.
right,
Shouldn't there be a camera directly over top the blue lines?
right.
Like you could do that.
Yeah,
Or are they just being cheap?
probably.
Probably. All right. But to get back to your point about the comeback, uh, I think it does show quite a bit of character and the fact that they came back. But I think it has a lot to do with the fact that St. Louis has everybody in a role that each player knows they can fulfill, feel comfortable in, and they have confidence in that role. And they all seem to be taking taking on those roles to support everybody else.
Right. We saw that in the Ottawa game.
Yeah.
Right? The line that I'm going to say it's the line that everyone shit on last year, or the line made up of players that everyone shit on last year. Christian Dvorak, Brendan Gallagher, Josh Anderson. They were the best line that night. I think combined they had 9 points and 4 goals or something like that, with Dvorak of all players picking up 4 points. As you said,
Pretty good again last night.
yeah, teams they're they're playing to specified roles. And what I do see, however, is I still see a major gap on that second line. It seems that the first line, the third line, and the fourth line, you can put them out there. You know what you're getting out of them. You know what their identity is. The Jake Evans line has turned into a very productive fourth line, shutdown type, you know, any situation type line. The Dvorak line is played well defensively, and lately they've thrown up good numbers. Josh Anderson's out there playing like a fucking freight train.
Yeah, he looks like he's 22 years old again. Like
Even
he's
even
just
though
flying.
even though it seems that every time that they're not playing, they're hooking him up to every machine and like we can rebuild him and whatever because he's never at practice. And then the first line is truly turned into or shown everyone, shown the haters, shown the league that they are an established NHL first line. It's that second line of Newhook today was Newhook, Waugh, and Lione that I
Yeah.
think is at 5-on-5 just isn't bringing it because they're missing that second line center.
Well, and Newhook's doing the best he can, and
He
he's not
is.
playing poorly.
No,
He's generating
it's
chances. It's just not
finish.
going in.
It's the finish.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got finish on his line.
True. But at the same time, it's kind of one of those jammed together lines.
That's
Line
true.
A clearly does not have the foot speed that he normally does because
Yeah.
I don't think he's recovered that well. Ruaz is still kind of trying to find his own role,
Well, the
like
thing is, he doesn't want to
his
make a
own
mistake. He
method.
doesn't want to make a
Yeah,
mistake.
exactly,
But the next option is Michael Pizzetta.
exactly.
And I'm not going to shit on Michael Pizzetta, but what they've been doing, and you've seen it just as well as I have, as have the fans, as have our listeners, they're not fucking with the other three lines. They're just saying,
No,
"Okay, Pizzetta, you're going on the second line."
yeah,
And what does that do to a guy like Patrick Laine?
exactly.
Right? Is that going to raise his game? Probably not.
No, but at the same time, if he's prorated to a 40 goal season over an 82 game, full
That's
82
true.
games,
That's true. But
granted
that's
36 of them are power play goals.
right. But that's also. But again, that's not at 5-on-5. He's got three five.
No.
He's got three goals that aren't on the power play this year.
But at the same time, whether it's not the fact that he's not scoring enough on 5, which would be great if he was scoring more. It's that line when it's been put out there over since the Four Nations break, whether it's Beck, whether it's Hawa, that line has had a difficult time
Yes.
um, countering the other team's second line.
Or
And
almost
that,
any line.
yeah, well, yeah,
Right. So
but they're not really the second line.
no, they're not. They're
The de
not.
facto second line is the Dvorak line with
Right.
Anderson and Gallagher.
You have like a 2A, 2B, really.
Yeah, and the New Hook line is more the 2B than
Right.
2A.
Right.
The Dvorak line is the 2A. Now, Dvorak is definitely not a second line center, and he's
He's
not
not.
producing that much, but he is playing good hockey. There, it's
Yeah.
nearly mistake free. He's winning his faceoffs. He's providing that defensive coverage that allows Anderson to go crazy up and down that right wing. And
Right.
Gallagher's rejuvenated. We'll get into him here in a second, but that line has worked really well together all season long.
It has. It has. And we're seeing what happens when you keep lines together. You keep lines together, you're going to create chemistry and you're going to create that bond between these lines. And guys know where they're going. The guys know um, what the strengths are of the guys that are with them. And I've been yelling at the Canadians to keep the first line together for the longest time. And finally, we're seeing it. So you bring in a second line center, which again is a massive hole in this team. You're seeing in the defensive lines guys that are getting more used to each other. They're not in a blender anymore. And you're seeing it with the other three lines. They're all playing well enough that again, I say, if that rotating player comes out, it's on the second line. And that's not something we usually see. Usually it's like, all right, let's blend the lines. Or someone's like, Armia would jump up to the second line and you throw in Pizzetta or something like that. So the fact that 3 out of 4 of your lines are staying that way in most of your defensive pairings, I think St. Louis has got something here.
I agree. I think the Canadians, uh, while the rebuild is far from complete here, they can see a light at the end of the tunnel now. They're not near the finish line. But if you're looking at stages, I mean, they did the sell off, they did the accumulate assets, they've done the progress some of those young assets, and now they've got the try to make that next step for the a regular playoff spot, which means
Right.
in the summer they'll make some moves. But for right now, the Canadians really have an issue with that line, but it's not really holding them down that much. They're actually
They're
playing really good hockey.
still winning games,
They're still winning games.
right?
And I think a lot of that has to do with the culture in the room. I know a lot of people, especially on Twitter, for many years after Bergevin mentioned culture.
Yep.
Everybody crapped on that idea, but it's a real thing. It's a tangible thing.
Right. I'm looking at a guy, Nick Suzuki, and we've brought him up since the Four Nations quite a bit, and he's really put the team on his shoulders. But look who we learned, like, look at the guy that he learned from in Shea Weber. Shea Weber was one of those quiet captains, and now we're seeing a Nick Suzuki. He's scoring the goals. Yeah, the other night when he scored the winner against Ottawa, we saw the celebration and everything like that. But we're seeing more of a Captain Serious Jonathan Taves type Nick
Yeah.
Suzuki, right? He's going out there, he's getting the job done, and I think he's auditioning himself for the Olympic team and the World Cup team and any other of these international tournaments to say like I deserve to be here and I'm going to lead by example on the Montreal Canadiens to get there.
So you're saying what you're saying is he is a first line center.
100%.
Unlike what some people may think, I agree. He is a first line center.
Yeah.
He's got 71 points. He's
Yeah.
on pace for over a point per game,
Yeah.
uh, which would be an improvement over last season's 77 points.
Yeah.
Granted, he's got less goals, but he's got more assists. Like
Right.
he has in the last 10 games, he has scored 14 points. Like you
Yeah.
said, he's picked the team up on his shoulders and
Yeah.
carried them. We were just talking about the second line and how much trouble it's had. Well, he's the first line with Caulfield and Slavkovsky. If there's no a real second line, well, your best defensemen are going up against them. So he's not only doing this uh, randomly, he's doing this against the best players on the other teams, night in and night out, and he's coming ahead pretty much every single night.
Absolutely.
But he's not the only leadership in that room. We do like you talk culture. You have to look at the tenured people that are there, and this is where I want to go over to Gallagher. He's the longest serving Canadian in that room, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. You remember the 2021 Cup run, Cup final appearance, blood trickling down his face with that killer instinct look in his eye. It's
Yeah.
just that's the type of player he is. That's the type of person he is. And he's been able to exemplify that this year. He's been rejuvenated because of it. And you got to feel for him because he's doing that while going through everything that he's been going through in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Like the emotion of having a child, it's it throws you for a gigantic loop. If you've ever had kids, uh, you know. And then losing his mother around the exact same time. Like it ups and downs. But yet he's found a way to channel that and be effective on the ice to do his
Right.
job.
And I think the guys are really rallying around him for it,
Yeah.
and they're seeing his how he's playing, and he's scoring these key goals at key times, and yeah, heart goes out to the guy. It really does. Like again, he plays. He like well, remember when Bergevin signed him? Like Bergevin got emotional when he was talking about what he brings to the team. And you can tell this guy cares. You can tell they care about him. And during the trip to Vancouver, um, apparently it was brought up that they went to surprise him at the family. They went to surprise him at the family home, and all the guys got in a bus and bussed up to where they lived and just kind of spent time with them and the family, right? So you can see how important he is, and you can see how close this team has become. And the fact that, say, Suzuki said, hey, like, give this group a chance. We didn't see any new people come in. We all we saw was someone get signed and Jake Evans. It shows how close they are. Um, and I'm gonna give a big shout out to Lucy for everything she
Yeah,
did,
I wanted to bring her up. Yeah.
right? For everything that she did with offering the practice jersey, the Hockey Fights Cancer practice jersey. It's you on the bottom it says I fight for. It says mom on it,
Yeah.
and obviously with her losing her battle and recently passing away, she reached out via Twitter and said, I'd really like you to have this, and I'll just read it off right here. I'll read the response if you'll bear with me for a second as we record. But I just think it's an incredible thing. So the post says, "Dear Brendan Gallagher, I feel this jersey should belong to you. You wore it in warm up in 2022, just before they stopped making these. So this is very unique, like your mom was. If you want it, it's definitely for you to keep as a memory jersey." And he comes back and says, "This is incredibly kind of you, thoughtful and really appreciated. How about a jersey swap on the ice on April 16th, which just so happens to be the jerseys offer back ceremony,
Yeah.
which is an annual thing that they do on home ice. And I think it's incredible. I think it really is, and I think it's going to be a very emotional moment for both Lucy and for Brendan. And again, like these are the stories that you like to hear from when it comes to fans. And there's a reason why the Canadians fans are top notch. They're the best in the league for a reason.
Well, you know how at the end of the shows, I'm always talking about the community, the Habs community online, how great it is. Well, Lucy just proved it.
Yeah,
She showed it why. Like
yeah,
what she did was so beautifully selfless to
yeah.
offer him such a keepsake to remind him of his mother. Like she's here you go. Like
Right.
to a guy that yeah, everybody looks up to the players, but I mean, it's not like she's ever met these people or knows these people. So she's just giving them literally
Yeah,
the shirt off her back.
right. So again,
And
hats off to her. Like that's incredible.
and how
And
much do you think that means to him?
it's gonna be huge. Like
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to watching that game, watching that ceremony, and just as I'm sure there's gonna be a very good moment there between the two of them.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
And again, Lucy, great work. We always love the interactions with you on here. You're fun, and I'm really happy that you're getting recognized for just being a nice person.
yeah, yeah.
It's in in the news cycle that we are living in today.
Right.
Isn't it absolutely beautiful to actually see good people for a change?
Absolutely.
All right, so I want to move on to one last thing that is in regards to this Islanders game, and that's Montembeault. He's not exactly at the top of his game in the last couple of games. That's
He's
not to say that he's not good, but he doesn't look on.
he's been good since he's been back. He's been good. Yes, but he has let in some soft ones, and the team has rallied behind him.
Yes.
You look at his last 5 games, okay? Edmonton, Vancouver, Florida, Ottawa, and the Islanders. I'll just go really quick. So last game, 840 save percentage. Ottawa he had an 880. Florida was a 955. He had a 935 against Vancouver and a 906 against Edmonton. Um, all of those he picked up points.
Yes.
Okay. Picked up points in all of them, two of them being overtime losses, the others being 6-3, 3-1, and 4-2 wins. I can't blame him for some of these goals against or some of these losses or lost points or anything. However, as you said, there have been some weak ones. We saw it in the Ottawa game. Saw it, I would say with the OT winner the other night.
Yeah. But the glaring one to me was the Hamonic goal in the Ottawa game.
Yes,
Like that was
yes,
that is a
that was
thousand
pretty bad.
percent. Yeah. And it's not that he's not good or not doing his best or not, not doing well. I mean, like you said, he's 3-0-2 in the last 5 games here. Like
Right,
they're winning, they're getting points,
right.
but he does look a little bit tired. I think I think it would benefit the team if they'd play Dobish a little bit more to give Montembeault a little bit more time to recover mentally. Because
Well,
it's not like a physical thing for him. It looks like it's a mental fatigue.
let's bring up the schedule. Okay, let's bring up the schedule. So Colorado playing them on Saturday night. Chances are it's probably going to be Montembeau in. They play St. Louis on Tuesday the 25th. They're
Yep.
probably going to say, let's put Montembeau against Bennington because it's a Four Nations. It's a Four Nations, two goalies. I can see it probably happening. And St. Louis has also been playing pretty good hockey lately. Where I can see Jobash playing is against the Flyers on the 27th because it's a back-to-back. Next game being against Carolina. So you'd play Montembeau on the 22nd and 25th. And then you'd have 3 days off to rest. With the next game being on the 30th against the Florida Panthers and the first against the Florida Panthers. So you're going to see a back-to-back there anyway.
Yep.
So if you're looking at it, more than likely you're going to see you'll see Dobesh in there at least twice over the next 6 games. That's what I would say. I'd say against the Flyers and then maybe the first game against the Panthers, the one that's on the road.
Yeah. Yeah. We can't say that they're going to be picking and choosing games either. They have not been
That's right.
afraid to throw them up against
That's right.
top
That's
teams.
right. Yeah. But
So
I
playing the
think
Panthers, that makes
yeah,
sense.
but they're playing again, they're playing the Panthers back to back.
Yeah.
So again, I would say play Monty the next two, then play Dobush, play Monty, play Dobush, play Monty, and then kind of go from there. And I'm not gonna say pick and choose, but if it gets down to towards the end of the season and you want your best, you want your number one or who's supposed to be your number one in net. Um,
Yeah.
because down the stretch, I'll just yell, I'll just throw out April schedule. Florida, Boston, Philly, Nashville, Detroit, Ottawa, Toronto, Chicago, Carolina. So I'm reading a lot of these teams that should be winnable games.
Should be.
Should be, right?
Should be.
So could I see Dobish playing more? Absolutely. But it's going to depend on how they can distance themselves from who's chasing them.
And well, the way I'm looking at it is you're trying to um, manage his usage a little bit as well. And unfortunately, this season they have not been able to do that. He's been in 51 of the 68 games this season. That's a
That's true.
lot of
That's
hockey for a
true.
goaltender.
It is. But it took
Now,
them a while to realize that Caden Primo wasn't the guy. And it took a lot for them to come to that decision and then finally move him when really he was at his worst to send him down to the American Hockey League. And I'm going to say hats off to Caden Primo because since he's been down in the American Hockey League, he's played extremely well.
he has. He's been nearly unbeatable.
He's 16-2 in 18 games.
Yep. And they're playing right now,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact.
So again, he's went down there. He's been a professional. Other players might not have done the same. So again, good on him.
Yeah, it did seem like he was lacking confidence. And then Dobish came up and he had a great start, and people were just pumping every tire possible. And then he's had a little bit of a dip, but that's to be expected. Like Dobish, in my opinion, is going to be a solid, you know, backup goaltender in the NHL. He might be more, but for now, he can fill that role. But for this season, I know the Canadiens were planning on making the playoffs. Like they wanted to, but
Yeah.
let's be realistic. The expectation wasn't really there.
It was to play
But
the
now that,
meaningful games, and that's what they're doing.
yeah, and they are. And now that they're kind of there, it would be good if they kind of managed him a little bit, his ice time, Montembeau, that is,
Right.
so that he's more capable come playoff time.
Right. But you got to get there
Obviously,
first.
play the big games.
Right?
Yeah,
But you
exactly.
got to get there. And I
Yeah,
get the mentality that you
yeah.
want that guy to be in. It's the same thing, and I'm not gonna people are gonna fucking jump on me for saying this, but as I know how people are, but like look when Montreal had Carey Price. They still technically do, but he was playing the big games and he got them through those games. Yes, he played the majority of the games, but it's just because you want your number one to be in there. And again, people, don't shit on me because for many years, Carey Price was the Montreal Canadiens. Not a lot of people were saying, well, put Jake Allen in for your big games. Yes, they did do that for a little bit when Carey Price was gone. So calm the fuck down, people, as you listen to this show.
Well, I mean, yeah, they were a goaltenders team. Like they were built around a
Yeah.
goalie.
And they have been for
Now,
years.
yeah, well, you look back through the history of the team,
Yeah,
they've won all those cups because they've also had a superstar goaltender in net.
absolutely.
You look
Absolutely.
back at any point that they've won a Stanley Cup and tell me that that goalie's not a superstar.
Right. Ken Dryden, Patrick
Patrick
Roy.
Roy,
All right. Jacques Plante.
Glenn Borsley,
Right? Like you just keep naming off superstar goalies.
Bill Durnan,
Right?
like
So,
on and on and on. But now the team, while the goaltending's pretty good, it's not built around a star stud goaltender. Like Montembeau's good, but he's no Carey Price.
right.
Now the Canadians are actually more of a they're trying to build that three offensive line team with some really good defense, and it's starting to show. It's starting to come out.
Yeah.
So the meaningful games are going to be important. It'd be nice if they made the playoffs. It'd be great.
Okay, I'll ask you a simple question. Would this, if they make the playoffs, doesn't matter where they are, if they're first wild card, second wild card, they go on a long streak, they win the division, whatever. Um, they come out, they make the playoffs. Does the how they do in the playoffs matter?
But you're there, so you know the
Yeah.
players are going to give everything they have.
Yeah. But like, say they make the playoffs, get knocked out in the first round.
Yeah,
Would you say that's a very successful season for this group?
1,000%.
Right?
And I wouldn't want them to get blown out for
No.
nothing
Of
either. I
course not.
don't
Of
think they
course not.
would.
And I don't think they would either.
So how they play in the playoffs matters more to me than how they do in the playoffs.
Right. Right.
Just like it was before. When they were building up to this point, how the team played meant more than how what the outcome was.
Yeah.
Well, that now it's stepped over to the playoff side.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to need probably another 15 points
Right.
to really say they have a legitimate shot.
Right.
It's a lot of points and very few remaining games. And
Well, they
well,
have
500
14.
hockey though.
Yeah. Well, they have 14 games left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's some good teams in there, so
There
they
is.
can't take their foot off the gas.
Right. But
So
they have to play with that same structure and same mentality against all those other non-playoff teams as well.
yeah,
You can't go out there against the Blackhawks or against the Nashville Predators or against the Flyers and just be like, well, we're better at them in
da
the
di da di
standings
da. Yeah,
because there's guys on those teams that are playing for jobs or they're trying to, they're playing,
spoiler.
yeah, they're professionals. They don't want to go out and
Yeah,
lay an egg either, right? So,
no,
and some of these guys are going to want to play spoiler.
I know I
So,
would.
yeah,
All right, so that's pretty much it for this episode. Do you have any last thought for the next minute?
I do not. I'm just going to say again, shout out to Lucy. More people should be like her. Go over, go follow her. It's very easy to find her. She is
It is
everywhere with
now.
it. You know what it was before.
Yeah.
She's very vocal in the Canadians community, online. So if you're not already following her, find her on Twitter and, you know, share the hell out of that story. It deserves to be, and it's a very positive thing at a time where everything is negativity and tariffs and all this other bullshit. So again, shout out to her.
And I'll echo that sentiment. And again, I'm going to come back to it and say this community that's this Habs community online, I mean, perfect example of how great it can be. We really appreciate everybody interacting with us. Um, Remember to check out our sponsors, BioSteel and No Name Hockey. Canadian companies. And remember, if you're talking about it, so are we.